So, book review time. This time it is Esoteric Empathy. This book I received from the publisher's author, whatnot, for free to do a review on. So, but, there's no bias here. I don't care about biases. A book's a book's a book. Regular price, I believe this is $19.99 US, $22.95 Canadian. That's without any GSTs or any extra taxes and whatnot. So that's the regular price from this book. There's been other books from this author as well. He's also the author of the Goth book, which I know a lot of us gothy folks probably have, or at least seen, because, well, it's called Goth. So, I guess let's get started with this. Now, the first thing I'm going to note is I'm definitely not the target audience for this book, because, well, even though I'm into magic and paganism, and I study psychology, which empathy is, part of, I am not an empath by any means. I'm not really empathic at all, really. I don't care much for people at all. I mean, I like cats, but I don't feel other people's pain, and I don't experience other people's emotions, none of that stuff. So I'm not really the target audience for this. However, the author does note that he wants people who are not his target audience to still read his book, because you can gain something from it even if you are not an empath, which I definitely agree with. There's a lot of stuff in there that is suitable for someone who may not be empathic at all. But also this book is very American-centric, which is not all that surprising. Most books are a little bit American-centric. And obviously I'm not American, so that's kind of the other area where it doesn't apply to me all that much. And the weird kind of thing I found is he brings up Britain quite a few times in here, for it being very American-centric. I'm not entirely sure why, but I like Britain personally, minus the whole Brexit situation. That's another story. But I like Britain, so I'm cool with it. And yeah, I made little notesies. And this book, obviously, it is a non-fiction book, and it does read a little bit like a textbook, but it's a much more friendly kind of textbook, and it's not like a university-style textbook at all whatsoever. So it's much more personal and friendly, I guess. And I noticed that there is a ton of question marks and exclamation marks in this book. I don't entirely know why, but there's an awful lot of them. I kept noticing that there was like question marks and exclamation marks all over the place. Which, I mean, it doesn't bother me, but, I mean, if you're someone who hates those, then I guess you won't like it very much, but I just found it kind of funny, and I think it also helped with it being less formal, I guess, because most textbooks you're not going to see exclamation marks and everything everywhere, so it makes it feel a little bit less like a textbook, which is good. So, yeah, and the author, he does a really, really good job of making it a very personal towards the readers, and he provides a lot of words of encouragement, positivity, links to supplies to help you with, like, any kind of personal issues you may have. Anxiety and depression gets brought up a couple times with a big list of things that you can do for anxiety. It's a couple pages long. I did not mark that. It's in here somewhere, though. Yeah, tips for combating anxiety. There's 3 pages on anxiety tips, and about 3 pages for tips on depression. So there's a fair amount. It gets brought up more than once in here, so there's a couple pages on that. And right off the bat, like, first chapter, I noticed that this is LGBTQ friendly, completely. Right off the bat, there's mention of male, female, and non-binary, so that is mentioned. So this is definitely LGBT friendly for sure, which is a positive in my opinion. I mean, some people might get pissed off at that, but for me, it's a complete positive. I'm pro making all your books LGBTQ positive. Thank you. And of course, being a pagan book, the subject of past life gets brought up a little bit. Not much, but a little. And this, of course, you would not see in a psychology textbook on empathy. So that's where this is drastically different from all psychology textbooks on empathy, is it brings in paganism, magic. There's a lot of, like, spells. You've got the prayer hands on couple of pages. You got a couple of different kinds of the traditional one that everyone kind of sees all the time. That gets in there an awful lot. But This book would definitely be great for someone who is actually an empath, so not like me. It'd also be great for anyone that works in public service or healthcare. You know, you're dealing with people a lot, dealing with people's energies and whatnot. And it's also good for anyone who's trying to learn to control their own energies, emotions, or depression and anxiety. Because as I said, there's already those little bits on depression and anxiety in there. So it is good for those kind of things. And there is multiple places where he does specifically talk about volunteer work and interacting with clientele and stuff. So that's good for, you know, healthcare practitioners and whatnot. So that stuff would be good for someone who's not really interested in the empath stuff. If you're just looking for things on how to communicate better with your clientele at your job, or how to help yourself with anxiety or emotional problems, it does come up in this book. It's not the focus of the book, but it does make it a little bit worth reading if you have a problem with, like, your emotions and whatnot. But it is definitely meant for someone who is an empath, especially someone who is a very strong empath and has problems with their empathic energy and whatnot. It's definitely meant for that kind of audience. Some positives that I noticed, some, I guess, specific positives anyway that I noticed, is the author, Christ. I'm horrible at remembering names. Raven. There's his name's there. I'll put the information for the book in the description. But I'll probably just refer to him as author. But some of the positives is he talks a lot about having a healthy body, mind, and spirit, as well as trying to keep the earth and your pets healthy. So because of that, there's a lot of go green, do volunteer work, watch what your pets are eating, pay proper attention to your pets, make sure that you don't become overwhelmed with things in your life. You need to practice self-love, help yourself, and practice creativity and art, which is all parts of, well, keeping your body, mind, and spirit healthy, which is something everyone should really do. So that's something just about anybody can take away from this book, is keep yourself and the environment, your pets healthy. And the going green thing is brought up in quite lengths. Green eggs and ham, that's the whole pit's card called. But there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pages on just ways to be good for the environment, and they're just given in little bullet form. Just a whole bunch of pages on that, which, honestly, I think is good, frankly, because we all should try to be a little bit more environmental. And it's nice that he goes out of his way to show off the stuff. And with the pets and looking after them, he does explicitly state that vegan food is often not healthy for cats and dogs, which is true, especially with cats. Vegan food is never healthy for a cat. Don't feed your cats vegan food. I like that he brought that up, because that makes me happy, and it pisses me off when vegans claim their food is healthy for cats. And really, dogs shouldn't be having it, and oh my god. There's a lot of birds outside the window, like Attack of the Birds, but there's also a point where he brings up, like, alcohol and weed and stuff, and mentions that weed is healthier, which, yeah, that's just a fact, and it's just nice that he brought that up. And there's also a critique with the war on drugs, and there's a lot of critiquing of capitalist society in the book as well, which is not all that surprising. Most pagans and alternative folk and whatnot don't really like capitalism, and that's justifiably so, because capitalism sucks. So I liked seeing that brought up in the book, that capitalism sucks. And then there's also a part where there is some serious sass towards people who are, I guess, fluffy light witches and stuff that are scared of anything that's marked as, like, bad and evil. Because you got this nice little figure right here. And he explicitly says that one of the reasons he put it in, that he was proud to display it, is because he knows this very image is likely to scare off at least a handful of white lighters who are prone to occult prejudices. Whatever. However that word's pronounced. I'm horrible. And I like that in there. I like snarky, I like sassy, I get a kick out of it. I like that being in there, because, yeah, it does kind of annoy me when people who are part of magic and stuff completely shun anything that comes off as dark and ooky and spooky. So I do like that kind of gets brought up kind of in a sassy way in the book. And when it comes to talking about client care and everything like that, and dealing with your clients and everything in the book, he does explicitly state that you cannot give people prescribed medicine unless you actually have the proper training and whatnot and licenses to do so. Which is, yes, people need to not try to force other people to take medication or prescribe them unless you're a trained professional, regardless of what book you've read. So reading this book, it's not going to make you a therapist. It can help with therapy stuff, but it's not going to make you a therapist. And then, in here, there's also this big, long list of charitable organizations that you can give to in here. And one thing I noticed pretty quickly, PETA is not included. And that's just my own personal hatred for PETA, but PETA sucks, and I'm very glad PETA wasn't included in there, because fuck PETA. I really hate PETA, and I'm glad he was not included in that list, but that's just a little personal thing. And then, another positive for people who are not interested in the empathy stuff at all, because, like me, that stuff, I have no use for it really too much. He goes, like, really in-depth on a whole host of other magic-based stuff, including, like, symbols, grounding, protection shields, chakra, the prayer hands that I showed earlier, pathworking, magical stones, tools, incense items, day astrologies, and the gods and goddesses. So that's more for just people who are just generally interested in pagan stuff. You will find some pagan stuff in here that's more general and less empathy-focused. Though the gods and goddesses that are brought up are, you know, the ones that work most with empathy and empaths and whatnot. So it is still a little empathy-focused, but also a little bit more general. And so there's that. Now, with the gods and goddesses thing, there was one thing that, I don't know, personal bias I don't like, and that's where he lists Jesus Christ. I personally have a problem with that because I hate Christian stuff, and I don't like seeing Christian stuff in my reading, unless it's painting it in a horrible and negative evil light, because I just really, really dislike Christianity. But that's just a personal bias against anything to do with Jesus Christ. So, but he is included in the gods and goddesses list. Now, of course, there's negatives about the book. There's a couple negatives I have about this book. The first is that he puts an awful lot of emphasis on empathy and pretty well claims that all positive interactions have empathy involved. And I think that is over-exaggeration heavily. Empathy, yeah, sure, it's important. It's an important aspect of humans and whatnot, but it's not that important. It's not a core value or anything. And one of the points where this really stood out and just kind of made me facepalm a little bit was in the conclusion where he says, "This current cannot be stopped, empathy is taking over," which just comes off as melodramatic as fuck to me. That is so fucking melodramatic. But it's also kind of funny. It seems slightly ridiculous and like a weird mantra I would see on a motivational page or something. It's slightly out of place, but it also works with the rest of the book because, like I said, he places a ton of emphasis on empathy, and being an empath. But I guess for a book that's focused on empaths, should not be too surprising to me. I just think he's overstating the importance of empathy a little much. And then when he talks about apathy, which is not very much, there's only like a little tiny bit where he talks about apathy, the first thing that came to my mind is the quote from an OTEP song, "Apathy is so hip, everybody's doing it." Great song, can't remember the title of it, but it's a good song, but that's the only thing I could think when reading the apathy thing. That's pretty much what he says, is that being apathetic in society today has become super seen as good, everyone's doing it. So it reminded me of that. He also kind of rips on the internet a little bit, and he frames the internet as a place filled with cruelty and unhinged judgment, which is slightly true. People tend to be dicks on the internet a lot more than in real life. Just in general. So I can get where that comes from, but it also kind of is a show of, I guess, his age. Maybe, I don't know, old the guy is, I don't know. But as a hardcore internet user, I dislike that. I view the internet as a place for learning, discovery, and a place to actually be more yourself, because, honestly, if someone's a dick online, then that's how they really are as a person. They just don't show it in person so that people won't slap them. So, I dislike the shitting on the internet thing. But that's because I like the internet. So again, this could be personal bias. And he also doesn't seem to like labels very much, or the whole being careless or carefree or not giving a fuck. and anger. He doesn't like anger either. And he marks them as just generally bad, which I don't really agree with, honestly, especially in the notion of being carefree. But when it comes to aggression and anger, I see them as good things, personally. I think it's one of the best outlets for your own energy and trying to put you into that perfectly amped up, I want to do shit mood. So I don't know why you would shun anger that much. Like, I get that, yeah, anger can make people hurt other people, obviously, but I find anger fun, and aggression fun. Not just being angry and aggressive, but watching other people be angry and aggressive. I find it fun and exhilarating and energetic. But I guess with empaths, they're sensitive to energy, so that might be kind of why maybe anger and aggression is too much energy for them. I can't really say. Again, I'm not an empath. This might be totally different for someone who is an empath, so. And on the grounds of the labels itself, I put a lot of labels on myself. Obviously, I like labels. I see them as freeing rather than restricting, and I see that they open up life more. They let you be yourself even better, and you're able to describe it and find other people who are like you. Labels are great. And on the carefree one, not giving a fuck is a personal fucking motto of mine. Don't give a fuck about other people. Who cares? Be carefree, do what you want. Huzzah! And I don't know why anyone would see that kind of as a bad thing. Because being carefree, it's a glorious feeling of pure joy and ease and oneness with yourself and the environment and spirit and just being yourself truly. So, I don't know why anyone would be against that, really, or framed as a bad thing. I mean, I guess not giving a fuck could be taken in a light of, like, oh, you don't give a fuck about the environment, so you're gonna, like, piss on every tree you see. I guess, but if you hurt the environment, you're ultimately hurting yourself. And when you don't give a fuck about anybody but yourself, then you gotta do stuff for others that helps you. Because if you hurt the environment, you're hurting yourself too. So as far as I'm concerned, not giving a fuck about anything but yourself ultimately helps others, because, well, you don't want to do anything that hurts you. And there is a little bit of noting, another bad thing, I guess, or negative for me, is there is a little bit of noting, this is a psychology thing, that you are able to completely or near completely change who you are as a person just simply by what you do, what you think, who you're around. In the realm of psychology, this is just simply not true. You can change yourself to a degree. You can't change yourself near completely or completely. It's not possible. Everyone has their base self-based standards, and there's no way to completely change it. It's impossible. Otherwise, I'd give myself telekinesis or something. But, yeah. And then other notes, stuff that's not good or bad. It really depends on how you view it. First one is on the meditations. There is meditations at the end of every single chapter. If I can find one. Yeah. Chapter meditation. There's one of these at the end of every single chapter. Personally, reading a meditation makes it impossible for me to do the meditation while reading, because listening to a meditation, you can just sit there and just kind of let the words go in your ears and stuff. You don't really have to focus on anything. But when you're reading, you're sitting there and you're focused on the reading. You're not focused on the meditation. So it's less soothing and it's distracting to be sitting there trying to read a meditation and do it at the same time. It's just not doable for me. But, like, if you're someone who could, like, memorize it, it would be, like, great. Because then you could just fucking memorize it and you'd be sitting there, like, memorized already, doing it. So, and they also has quotes at the beginning of every chapter in multiple different places. There's quotes everywhere. Everywhere. Which is nice, because it puts a bit of break between other things. But it also depends on whether or not you like quotes. If you hate quotes, then that's going to be a downfall for you. I don't dislike or like quotes, so... And beginning of every chapter, actually, he has a little personal anecdote about his own personal experience with something or another in each chapter, the very beginning. This, again, it brings the whole more personal thing in. This is great if you care. If you don't give a shit about his personal experiences, then I guess this part's irrelevant for you. But if you want to read about someone's personal experiences on the subject of whatever's in each chapter, there you go. It also makes the book more personal, so if you want to have a connection with the author, I'd recommend reading his little personal anecdotes. And then, in one of the meditations, I think it's the last one, I can't remember quite, he mentions adding a can of beer to the water, which, that just grosses me out, I'm sorry. That's just gross, personally. I don't even like beer. At all. And then some other little notes I have on here. As he does make notes of being responsible, that you are responsible for your influences on others, and I'm not sure if I agree with that. You can't control how other people act because of the way you behave and what you do and shit. You can't control other people's actions. You're not ultimately responsible for their actions. Sure, you can watch how you influence people, but there's only so much you can do. You can't put the blame on the influencer, I guess. Unless the influencer was really actively trying to get this person to do the thing. Yeah, and there is some actual, like, psychology people mentioned. Freud, for example, is brought up. Freud can be kind of a touchy subject when it comes to psychology. You either like the guy or you really, really, really hate him and disagree with what he says. I'm kind of in the middle. I don't really like Freud all that much. Yeah, that's a psychology thing. Yeah, and this also kind of reaffirmed for me that, yeah, I'm definitely not an empath. This is just very furthering me, like, nope, definitely not an empath. So, but, and in the end, this is a very, very good book for anyone who's empathic or like an empath or works with people and has to deal with emotions all the time. Very good book for anyone who's like that. Especially if you have problems with, like, too much energy and emotion and whatnot as an empath. Very good in that sense. Very, very good. But if you're someone who's very highly individual, likes labels, has a fuck everybody attitude like I kind of do, and you like yourself mostly, then this, yeah, there's some person you're not going to really like that much. And I guess you'd probably hate this book if you, for some weird reason, love capitalism and hate the environment. I don't know why you would be that way, but hey. Because if you're like that, yeah, you're going to get pissed off by many points of this book, because there's an awful lot of go green. An awful lot of go green. Which is understandable, because this is a pagan book. Pagans are pretty much all environmentalists. We care about the environment. So overall, I definitely say this is a good book. I would recommend it if empathy is something you're actually interested in. If you want nothing to do with empathy, and you don't want to read about empathy, and you don't like empathy, or anything to do with it, then this book's not for you. But if it's what you want to read, then I'd recommend reading it. Especially if you want to see a more pagan take on empathy, because that's what this is. It's a pagan take on empathy. So, yeah, book review. Oh, and I wasn't paid to do the book review. Just got a free book. Wasn't paid to do it. I also put up a review of this book, pretty much a written version of this, up on my Goodreads.